What up, peeps? I am back for another video. Um, Today I am going to be reviewing, like I said in my tweet, probably, I would argue, and I can agree with people, probably the most quintessential 80s movie ever in Back to the Future. So the plan is to do this one today, Back to the Future Part 2 next week, and then 3 the week after that. And then, like I said, tomorrow I'll be doing Devil's Advocate. So, but Back to the Future, I remember watching this movie. I was a kid. I mean, I had already known what the DeLorean looked like. The DeLorean is not arguably, I would probably say the most iconic car in entertainment, just like in general. Like over the Batmobile, over KITT, from I can't think of the show name right now, but yeah, but the DeLorean was everywhere, and I remember watching this movie, and Robert Zemeckis made history with this movie. In my opinion, the best time travel movie, because the way it explains time travel and the way they do their rules of time travel, it's easy to follow. It's not complicated. Like I always explain with movies like these that bring in these big, ideas, but they are able to explain it in a way that is palpable for normies, and it's not convoluted, but it's also not explaining it to children. And the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd is beautiful. It's so awesome. Like every scene in there together is so fucking great. And the scenes when they're in the 50s, it's like you actually feel like you're in the 50s. Like, 'cause there's some movies that just feel like let's say because there's some movies that are really bad at that, where it's set in let's say the 50s. Because I've seen another one, I can't think of the name right now, but a movie like that where it came out that year, but it's supposed to be set in the 50s, but it clearly just feels like a modern show. With this actually feels like, even though it came out in 1985, it actually feels like you're in the 50s. They did a good job with the set pieces, but the DeLorean is a great design. So the premise is a normal kid named Marty McFly who works with a scientist named Doc Brown, who ends up creating a time traveling car who steals plutonium, showing off the technology, ends up getting seemingly killed, and Marty, to escape, ends up traveling to 1955, and basically he has to make his way back. But while there, he complicates things, and basically he has to try to get his parents together. And Crispin Glover plays a really good awkward dude. I think that's why he's kind of cast in a lot of stuff, because he's really good at playing the awkward guy. I mean, he kind of was that in the Friday the 13th Part 4. I'm trying to think what else he was in. I think he was the same way in the Charlie's Angels movies. He was that weird guy in those movies. But he always plays that character well. And then you have Lee Thompson as the mother, she's a pretty beautiful chick. But yeah, and the actor who played Biff, in my opinion, the fucking just work he does, because he played pretty much 3 different characters in this movie. Well, not really, but the makeup work, because he played current Biff, which was in 1985, and then Biff in the 50s, and then Biff later in the film. It's so crazy how he was able to do that. And then it's going to be even crazier, and I think that's because I'm thinking of the second one where he's actually playing multiple characters. But yeah, just an all-around lore, and it's understandable why this film became, I would have to agree, if it's not Breakfast Club, I would say this movie, most iconic film of the 80s. But let's kick it off. So the film opens up. We get a nice kind of 80s, typical 80s opening where Marty's riding his skateboard around town, which is probably like my favorite opening of the movie. One of my favorite scenes of the movie. Then he goes to Doc's office, tries to play his guitar on sorry, the giant speaker, and it blows up. Gets a call from Doc, tells him to meet him at midnight, and you can already tell. Like, I love when a movie, especially when it's like the first of a franchise, already like there's already lore within it where it's like it feels lived in. Because I guess it's real side point. Hollywood has like a big problem with that a lot nowadays. Where like when you enter these worlds, they don't feel lived in. Whereas like I've watched like so many old movies I have watched, even up to like a couple, up to like a decade or even a little bit less. They knew how to like make you, when you get into this world, it feels lived in. Like it feels like actually people live in it. There's already lore within it. And there was, unfortunately, a lot of movies nowadays, or not just movies, even like TV, they don't really have that feel. So, but back to the movie. So, Doc tells him to meet him. Okay, so I jumped ahead, and he had to make it to school by, using his skateboard and getting behind people's trucks and cars to make it. So he makes it. This is where we meet his girlfriend, Jennifer. He ends up getting, meeting with Mr. But the strict, principal character, who mentions like his father. I like the little setup, like in foreshadowing of the movie, because they reference like the principal references Marty's dad being in the school. It's because it's gonna be shit we're about to see. Like movies like just knew how to set stuff up. So after that, this is where we meet his family, his brother. We meet his sister and his mom and his dad, who is getting picked on by his supervisor, Biff. And that his mom tells the story of how they met initially in this, I guess, timeline, I guess you would call it. They met because she ends up accidentally hitting him. But then, I skipped that Marty tried to have in his band, I think they're called Buckethead or something heads, and they were rejected. Then, so he wakes up, then he meets up with Doc, and this is where we get our first look at the DeLorean, and the special effects are pretty good for its time. There's some scenes it's not great, but largely, even in like full on like 1080 on a big TV, it looks pretty good still. The only scenes that look wonky are like the ones where it's like about to travel. And it was still 1985. This movie probably didn't have a jitsu, because back then not every movie had super giant budgets for special effects. Even like in the 80s, it was still not new, but it was only like the big blockbusters got like really crazy effects. So, and it still looks fine largely. So this is where we get our first look at the DeLorean, and then they have to and this is where we first meet Doc and his dog, and it's such a just great, the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd is beautiful. Like that's the thing about like any kind of movie where there is a pairing. If there's like that instant chemistry, like it's gonna be good. And so Doc Brown explains how he explains the flux capacitor and the speed the car has to go to get to the time travel. It's so like they explain it so well to where you can understand. They explain the rules over and over again. It's not like convoluted. That's why I say this is the best time travel movie, because they explain it and it follows its own rules consistently. So before Doc is about to set off, Libyans, because he ends up stealing plutonium, he stole the plutonium from him, show up and they seemingly kill Doc. So Marty gets in the car and ends up traveling to November 4th, 1955, because that's the day Doc discovered time travel. So he ends up making it in 1955, and it's even like, and the movie's pretty funny too. Like, it's not overly like slapsticky, but like the scenes like where Marty crashes the car because he's in like this radiation suit. He initially crashes, and you see like a cameo. If another movie I reviewed a while ago, Silent Night, Deadly Night, you have the crazy grandpa from that and his kids because he was woken up by Marty arriving, and it's because his kid's reading like a science fiction comic. It looks like an alien spaceship, so they think he's like an alien, so he gets shot at. So Marty escapes and makes it in 1955. Ends up running into his dad and Biff, and you still see the same kind of bullying tactics. And so after like a confrontation at the diner with Biff, he follows his dad home and ends up getting ran over accidentally by Lorraine and her family. This is where he gets to see his mom, and it's just so like, it's another one of those movies. It's like, what makes it great is like, imagine yourself in that position, like you're seeing your parents when they're young, and then obviously, because the story goes, because she was supposed to hit her George, but she instead hits him, and so she starts falling for Marty instead, which sets up for some couple of funny scenes. Then this is where he first meets young Doc Brown, who initially is like skeptical of him and even thinks he's crazy, but then proves it. And then he goes into, we get some more like scenes about, then we get a scene of them going to the school, and Marty poses as like a student, like a new kid in the school, and basically has to make, because Doc mentions that if time keeps changing, that he potentially could not exist. So he has to basically get his mom and dad together. But throughout the film, Lorraine's clearly falling for Marty, so he has to try to like get them together, because there's like a scene where he keeps looking at this picture of his family, but they're like slowly fading away because they're not going to get together. So then we get like probably a quick confrontation between Biff and Marty in the school. Then they go to the diner again, where Marty has before that, George initially tells Marty to basically fuck off. And then Marty poses as like Darth Vader in his radiation suit and references like Star Trek. He says like Planet Vulcan. I love all the references. He even plays like Eddie Van Halen. It's fucking great. So he pretty much gets George to agree to come because they got to go to the dance to get together. So he tries to have George ask her out. Initially goes well, but then Biff starts some shit. Then we get probably a really iconic scene. And throughout the film, the music is really good because it's made by the great Alan Silvestri. And another thing I didn't mention, I probably should have in the beginning, is there is a different cut of the film, because originally it was not Marty McFly. It wasn't the original Marty McFly wasn't Michael J. Fox. It was Eric Stoltz or Stoltz. I think it's Stoltz actually. He was in a couple of films in the 80s. He was originally supposed to be Marty. There's even like, I think you could see like, there's a scene out there, at least I've seen one. And I would not mind if because I think they actually shot the whole thing with him out. So there's like a whole shot, like a whole film with him in it. I would not mind watching it. I don't think it would ever change, like, because I can't unsee Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. And I feel like the way Stoltz played Marty, it's so much more. He's so much like a different character almost. So I wouldn't mind watching it as like a what if kind of version, but ultimately Michael J. Fox was the right choice. So after a confrontation with Biff chases him, and McFly makes a makeshift skateboard and causes Biff to crash his car into a manure, and this is where we get like the start of the oh shit trope with Biff. And then this is clearly where Lorraine starts falling for Marty. So initially the plan is for her to go to the dance with Marty, and then this is where we get a cool scene between him and Doc, and Doc's basically explaining the plan. And it's even the way they explain the plan to get Marty back to 1985 is so easy to explain, because he even has like this whole like diorama of the city made and all this shit. It's digestible, and that's what movies used to be able to do with these big concepts. Like another one I always bring up is like The Matrix, Jurassic Park, all these kind of movies have these big concepts, but they make it digestible for people to understand. I just don't know what fucking happened, like why we don't really get that now. So after explaining the plan, it's the night of the dance. So the plan is Marty's gonna play like he's gonna basically sexually assault Lorraine, and it's just so George can come in and make the save. So they get to the dance, but while he's in the car, Marty's in the car with Lorraine, while Doc is obviously setting up for the to get back in time. Marty gets taken out by Biff and his friends, and then Biff and his friends throw Marty in the trunk of these black singers. They scare him off while and Biff gets in the car, and this basically Biff tries to sexually assault Lorraine, and George comes in for the save, initially getting beat up on. Then Biff's like laughing at him, and then he throws the punch. Biff gets knocked the fuck out, and then he takes Lorraine to the dance, but because of the singer, because the picture is still like disappearing, he basically, because the singer hurt his hand, Marty has to play the guitar, and they're playing Earth Angel, but so George kisses Lorraine, and everything's back to normal. And then we get a performance of Johnny B. Good. Then Marty has like one last scene with his parents, which is actually there's some like really nice, beautiful scenes in the movie. Because there's a scene later before he meets up with Doc. He writes him like a letter because he's trying to tell him that you die. Because it looks like, because we don't know, which is done beautifully. Because they make you believe he's dead. Even though I've already seen the movie, I'm like, oh, shit. So he writes him this letter and then meets up with Doc, but Doc is like, no, I don't want to know, because he doesn't want to risk fucking up, like, affecting the future. So, more of that. So Doc sets up Marty in his car to get back to 1985. But Marty, so Doc notices the letter, because initially Marty snuck it in his jacket, and Doc is like having none of it. And then the thing on the clock tower fucks up, and then so Doc has to try to fix it while Marty gets in the car. And so they manage to make it work, and then Marty makes it back to 1985, and he tries to travel minutes before Doc gets shot, but he gets there too late, because by the time he gets back, the DeLorean runs out of power, so he has to run there, and he manages to find Doc. But this is where we get the reveal of Doc actually had a bulletproof vest because he actually read the letter, which is great. Like that reveal is so well done. And once again, a payoff. It's actually nice when a movie has a payoff. Just the acting, just all around. Even though I know there's still a little bit more. So Marty gets back. His mom's a lot thinner, and his dad is actually like has a nice job, and everything is different. And Biff now works for him, and throughout the film, even in the beginning, Marty's mom has like initial issues with him going to the lake house with Jennifer, but then by the time he gets back, she actually likes Jennifer. So it's once again they like tie up all movies knew how to like tie up every loose end back then, even if it was because they do set up for a sequel in this, but they still like tie shit up still. So he meets back up with Jennifer, gets a new car, but before he can get in, Doc gets back and basically tells him you have to come. Him and Jennifer have to come with him so they can change something. And then we see the DeLorean can float, and it sets up for Back to the Future Part 2. But this is an awesome film. Robert Zemeckis did a great job with this. It's shot well. The acting is great. The chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd is so fucking good. And Alan Silvestri killed it with that score. Like, I mean, it makes sense why they got him for the Predator score. Because, my God, the score for this film is great. Even, like, you know, Huey Lewis in the News, that song is, like, to me, the theme of that movie. And the way they explain time travel, it's done great. And it's just a funny film. And it, like I said, quintessential 80s film that gave us the most iconic car in entertainment history. You know, yeah, there's Kit from Knight Rider. There's the Batmobile. I would probably say specifically both the 66 Batmobile and the Burton one. But as much as I personally prefer the Batmobile, ultimately, the DeLorean is the most iconic car in film. Like, when I think of a car in a movie, it's the DeLorean. It's just such a great movie. Very quotable. I can understand why this is so many people's favorite movie. I love it, but it's not my favorite movie of all time, but it's definitely an iconic one. 10 out of 10. I mean, rarely does a movie fully get a 10, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's a brilliant film. This is one you can just watch all the time. The moments, the scenes in the 50s are done very well. It's just great film. Awesome film. Heavily recommend if you've never seen it. So, but, yeah. But, so tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing The Devil's Advocate, which is, a Keanu Reeves movie with Al Pacino. It's really good. I haven't watched it in years, but it's, even though, like, I'm not into lawyers and stuff, it makes that world done really, it makes it interesting just because it's a well-done movie. This is, like, where Keanu, in my opinion, kind of starts really, yeah, he was, because in Point Break, he's good, even in Speed. But, my God, in Devil's Advocate, like, he actually shows he can hang with Pacino, you know, in a movie. So, definitely going to be reviewing that one tomorrow. So, but, cheers to Back to the Future. But as usual, talk to y'all tomorrow. Fuck Warner Brothers. Fuck Disney. Fuck LeBron. Fuck Seth Rogen. Fuck Colin Kaepernick, and fuck Joe Biden. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow again. Peace.